At some point in the next couple of weeks, I anticipate that Nintendo is going to give us some news as to whatever in the world they've got going on in the second half of this year, and part of that will have to involve Fortune's Weave. It's absolutely insane to me that it's been a whole 9 months since we got any shred of news whatsoever about it, so I'm gonna do what I usually do before a new release and highlight a few hopes and dreams that I have for the upcoming game. Of course, you guys should participate in the comments too, like with all of my videos. You know I love reading your ideas, and let me know what you want to see in the next Fire Emblem game. So without further ado, here are 10 things that Fortune's Weave needs to do to succeed. The most important thing that I feel like Fire Emblem builds its identity around, and no longer follows, is that it doesn't reward strategy anymore. We need to go back to that. We're leaning more into the RPG elements, which I'm all for, believe me. I love the unit building, customizability, and focus on story and characters, but our gameplay needs to be robust and rewarding. The maps feel like more of an afterthought these days and don't give you fulfillment for conquering primary and secondary objectives. There's no deathless, clear reward that you can flex for bragging rights, for example, like there is in Triangle Strategy. And the maddening screen color change that Three Houses gave you was nice, but I'd love for them to straight up give you a difficulty tier that's hard, catered towards advanced strategy game players, that can only be played on classic mode and forces Iron Man, for example. Okay, maybe not entirely the last part, but take me to a level where I feel rewarded for being good at this game. You can call me a sweaty elitist all you want, and I can assure you I'm far from it. Trust me, there are people who are far more elitist and sweatier than I am. I am maybe a little bit sweaty, but I do nerd out a bit over the strategy and optimization in these games, and I'd like to feel like my theory crafting and gameplay expertise paid off. I know they probably won't do this, but damn would I love it if they did, and it would give players a reason to really keep coming back to try and tackle that high-tier content in different ways and push things to their limits. Fun fact, when I was actually writing this script, this idea only really came to me at point 9, but I moved it up here because of how strongly I felt about it. I could probably write a whole video about this if it's something you guys are interested in. Let me know. The second point, and I can't stress this enough, but we need to minimize the route splits. Three Houses fatigue got out of hand, stemming from having to replay 4 routes with lots of monastery time. It's a real phenomenon and has been brought up multiple times in the comments of my videos, but that's because it's true. And I think what adds to that, it compounds to it, is the lack of real variation in the difference between those routes. The first half is basically identical all 4 times you play it, just swapping out the characters you use, and even in the second half, a lot of the maps have decent amounts of overlap. In my opinion, 2 routes would have been sufficient for Three Houses, but if they're going to take that same approach with Fortune's Weave, we don't need quantity. We need quality, and I can easily see Fortune's Weave having multiple different routes between Dietrich, Kai, Theodora, and Lita. With the way they've been highlighted in the trailers, they seem to be important enough to have their own story arcs at the very least. But one remedy to that would be to have them all split into factions instead, with those characters joining someone else's cause. We really don't have enough information for me to make a prediction on this, but maybe Theodora and Dietrich team up, and Lita and Kai team up, for example, and it ends up just being 2 routes. Fortune's Weave also needs a strong cast of characters. A lot of people might see this as a reason to rag on Engage's more basic story and also one-note cast of characters, but it goes quite a bit deeper than that actually. The more memorable Fire Emblem games in the series that tend to get more attention get it because of their diverse and quirky characters or their great stories, which keeps them in people's heads as impactful experiences. Off the top of my head is Fire Emblem 6, Sword of Seals, for example, or Binding Blade as we call it now. There wasn't anything particularly impressive about the story in general, and the cast of characters was so overwhelmingly large that it was difficult for anyone to truly stand out. But when you compare it side by side to FE7, which shares some characters and takes place in the same world, the tighter cast and more emotional story leave a lasting impact that makes it easier to come back to. Sacred Stones, in the same generation, does something similar, albeit having another very simple story, but it really focused on the twins and their relationship with Leon and how that develops deep in the game. And of course, Three Houses is a juggernaut of a game when it comes to its phenomenal cast and has probably the best characters in the series. So for Fortune's Weave to truly succeed and shine, I think it needs to continue doing what Fodlan did best with its cast of characters, and keep that up with stellar supports, side characters that are more involved in the story than just the chapters they're in, and well fleshed out and developed main characters that interact well with the world that they're in. Not to mention, the villains gotta kick some ass too. I mean, come on, we really need some powerful villains. I feel like we're overdue. It's been a while since the Fire Emblem villains have been really good. But speaking of world, since I just mentioned it, that brings me to the next point, which is story and world building. Genealogy of the Holy War is my usual go-to prototype for excellent world building and story because it encapsulates everyone and everything within one clear, linear, and well thought out and wrapped up timeline. Fire Emblem historically struggles to do this, and one that I think came close was the Tellius duology here, since Radiant Dawn really elevated the world building at the expense of the Blood Contract, but that's neither here nor there. Three Houses also did this quite well with the lore that they had for Fodlan, but I think it came up a bit shorter than I would have liked, since not all the routes were as cohesive as I wanted and left me wanting a little bit more. But if Three Houses is going to be the baseline for this game, then building on top of that while tightening things up is a great place to start from, so I'm hopeful that they'll be able to do this well. My phrase for a successful story is always that the world is the most important and the characters are just living in it. It moves with or without them. We don't want world benders. We want a world that bends its characters to its will. My fifth point is a quick and easy one that pivots into gameplay, and honestly, it's that this game needs to have solid and clean map design. Games with varying objectives that keep you on your toes or having to adapt to play in different ways are good. Fire Emblem has already done a decent job at creating a core group of objectives like seize, route, defend, defeat boss, and arrive, and to be fair, these objectives are perfectly fine in their own vacuum as long as the maps around them are engaging and well built. But some more unique objectives are also a good thing, like a map where you need to activate multiple switches, for example, or maneuver a puzzle that you can solve without engaging in combat. Maybe a stealth map or two where good positioning wins you some goodies for not fighting. The possibilities are endless, and I'm not really the most creative person when it comes to map design, but I really would like to see them get more creative. For my sixth point, I'm gonna take a trip down memory lane and invoke the name of recruitable enemy units or NPCs. But also talk about recruitment conditions, because I think it's important. Last year, I played Tactics Ogre, and it has some of the most convoluted recruitment conditions for a bunch of the unique units, and I loved it. We complain about units like Xavier in Thracia or Shannon in Path of Radiance having pretty steep or odd recruitment conditions, and maybe they do for the quality of the unit you get. But I'm totally down to have some really unique recruitment conditions for some genuinely strong enemy units. Like, for example, imagine being able to recruit an enemy commander who's really strong, say on the level of a very loyal enemy general. But to do that, you have to interact with them in multiple maps previously, fulfilling some deep side quest chain along the way that has you investigating something they feel passionately about in order to turn them to your side. Or maybe an NPC who needs to be protected long enough to defeat a certain number of enemies as a green unit to realize they're strong enough to fight with you. Or heck, why not have certain alignments in this game that allow you to recruit certain units based on your choices in the game up until then, kind of like how Triangle Strategy did it. This makes you earn specific units instead of just getting them, and there are a lot of creative ways to handle unit recruitment to make the army building really fun. I'd like to see us go back to earned allies as opposed to just gaining units and their retainers periodically or having a flat-out full squad right at the start. I know that somewhat harms customizability, but that leads me into my next point. Controlled customizability. I pointed this out on my best Fire Emblem game video when I talked about the type of promotion system I'd like to see. But I'm a firm believer in unit identity and I'll stand by that. A lot of you reminded me that Awakening had a class system like that where units were somewhat limited in their promotion and reclass choices, and I'd like that to make a comeback. I really don't want to have to beat another Fire Emblem game with a full party of wyverns just to speedrun the game on my second and third attempts simply to clear it. Kneecap me. Force me to use different classes and diversify my army profile, but let my units be who they're meant to be, not anything they want to be, which I realize may be an unpopular opinion. And with that opinion, here's one that I think might be popular, but please, for the love of all that is Fire Emblem, let's rebalance the classes. I'm tired of my armored units simply falling to the wayside because flyers are stronger in every way, shape, or form. I'm tired of calves simply bum rushing through things to clear every map. I realize some of this ties into map design and the need to make different unit types do different things, but I think Engage was onto something when it gave different movement and class types different on-map effects. I'd like to see us lean into that. Give me a reason to have a dedicated tank or two. Make my glass cannons truly glass. Make my flyers more of a hit-and-run class that won't dominate. And make wyverns the actual bulky but slow flyer they're supposed to be. Things like unit balance really diversify your army and make your gameplay feel different. It also generates different playstyles for different players, and we might even see different strategies for low turn count runs. Whew, okay, can you believe I'm at point 9 and I haven't talked about hub worlds yet? Well, it's not time yet, because I'm talking about the progression system now. I think Fire Emblem Engage absolutely nailed the progression system. The way they handled their weapons, the way skills and skill inheritance worked, everything about it was balanced perfectly. All Fortune's Weave needs to do is keep that. Don't change it, don't twist it, don't bring back the Three Houses system, although let's be real, they probably will, but the Engage system was ideal. Keep that, and we got a successful game. And last but not least, now it's time to talk about hub worlds. I'm gonna keep this simple, but I think a fine balance needs to be struck between Life Simulator Emblem and Menu Emblem. Both have their positives and negatives, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to do some form of army management, and I don't know if we've hit the sweet spot yet. Fatigue sets in if you do too much, like in Three Houses, but doing too little takes away from the progression system and customizability. Also, being able to roam the world is pretty fun, and seeing characters out in the wild and doing their own thing is pretty neat too. So I don't know what the proper solution is, but they do need to find that nice balance to keep the gameplay streamlined. And that's it! 10 things I think Fortune's Weave needs to do to be perfect on launch to be a truly successful game. This definitely is not an exhaustive list, and I'm excited to see your suggestions in the comments below as well, but that's all for this video, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon. Peace.